We're always looking for that edge, right? The optimal path.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you're a parent trying to give your kid the best start or, you're an adult just drowning in emails trying to find a productivity system that works.
We all want that shortcut.
We do. We want maximum output, minimum input.
But that's the trap, isn't it? Sometimes the path that looks easiest, the one that feels intuitive, is actually a shortcut to, well, to failure down the line. We
Yeah.
see this play out so dramatically in early literacy.
Absolutely. And that's what this deep dive is all about. It's that contrast between the systematic, proven ways to build knowledge and those tempting shortcuts that just don't work long term.
All right.
So we're going to start with the science of reading, look at some harmful strategies that are still out there, and then we'll flip it.
And translate those same principles into some really practical, low-friction hacks for you, the adult learner.
Our mission today is to show how that systematic approach, whether you're 5 years old sounding out words or 55 trying to manage information overload, is really the only way to go.
So to really get this, we have to talk about the stakes. They're huge. Reading isn't just another school subject.
No, it's the gateway. So what happens when that gateway is locked from the start?
The consequences are, they're devastating. I mean, look at the data. Back in 2007, 33% of fourth graders in the U.S. couldn't even read at a basic level.
A third. That's staggering.
It is. And when kids struggle early, researchers see something they call the Matthew effect.
Okay, the Matthew effect. Let's unpack that.
It's basically the idea that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, but for academics.
So the kids who are good at reading get better and better, and the ones who struggle just fall further behind.
Exactly. The gap just gets wider and steeper through elementary and middle school. It's not just a statistic, it's a real barrier for life.
And that knowledge gap must be just devastating. Because it's not just about English class, right? It's the gateway to math, to science, to history.
Everything. If you can't read well, you can't access the content. You're locked out. Their vocabulary stagnates. It's a vicious cycle.
So to stop that from happening, let's go right back to the beginning. The research talks about emergent literacy. What does that actually mean?
Emergent literacy is everything that happens before formal reading instruction.
Yeah.
It's this continuous process that starts super early in life.
So we're talking about building the cognitive hardware first.
That's a great way to put it. And decades of research have really zeroed in on 3 specific skills that are the best predictors for success later on.
Okay, so what are the big 3?
Phonological awareness, print knowledge, and oral language.
I think print knowledge and oral language seem pretty intuitive. Knowing letters, having a good vocabulary, but phonological awareness, that sounds a bit technical.
It's the auditory piece. It's all about sound. It's the ability to hear and play with the sound structure of language.
So not even looking at a book yet.
Not yet. It's knowing that cat isn't one sound. It's made up of individual sounds. Coo, to, do. And that if you take the coo sound away, you're left with at.
So that skill has to be there before you can connect those sounds to the actual letters on a page.
Precisely. It's a prerequisite.
So how can families build these skills without, turning the home into a school?
It doesn't have to be formal, but it does need to be intentional. Things like joint reading, asking open-ended questions.
Singing, storytelling.
Yes, and especially reciting nursery rhymes. Rhymes are fantastic for training the ear to hear those sound patterns.
And I saw a great research nugget about pacing, too. You don't need these long, drawn-out sessions.
No, short bursts are key. 5 to 8 minutes. Focus on one skill at a time, recognizing the letter M, then forming the letter M, then making the mm sound, and just fill the house with print, label things, point out letters on street signs.
Okay, but this is where we hit our first kind of shortcut fallacy. I think most parents today assume that digital learning games have to be the best way to teach this stuff.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
But the MSU research we looked at says the exact opposite.
It's a huge finding. That Michigan State study found that the simple hands-on things, a kid writing their own name, spotting letters out in the world, those led to the biggest literacy gains.
And here's the kicker.
The kids who spent more time on literacy games, both digital and analog,
They actually scored lower on reading assessments.
lower. The flashy gamified route often lets them bypass the actual hard cognitive work. That physical real-world connection matters.
Wow. And speaking of things that seem useful but aren't, let's talk about flashcards.
The flashcard. It feels so systematic, but it often misses the point entirely.
How so?
Because they usually just focus on labeling nouns. What's this, a dog? What's this, a ball?
Right.
But the research is fascinating here. It turns out the number of verbs a child knows is a much better predictor of their later language development than the number of nouns.
Verbs are more important than nouns. Why?
Because verbs are about relationships and action. You can point at a picture of a cat. But to understand the cat is climbing, you need context. You need interaction.
It's a two-way street, not just a quiz.
Exactly. You're reading a book, you comment on the picture. Look, that truck has huge wheels. Where do you think it's going? You're exposing them to full sentences, to rich language.
So the big takeaway for this first part is clear. Intentional, systematic training on sound and print wins. It beats the flashy, techie shortcut every time. Okay, so we've seen how physical shortcuts, like relying on digital games, can fail a young learner. But now let's get into the big cognitive shortcut, the one that was an absolute disaster for so many readers.
Guessing.
Guessing.
We're now diving into one of the biggest controversies in education, really. The idea of using 3 cueing strategies. You might know it as MSV.
Meaning structure and visual.
Exactly. It was a theory from Ken Goodman back in the 60s, and it got picked up by really influential programs.
So what was the theory? What did they think skilled readers were actually doing?
Well, this is the really counterintuitive part. They believed that skilled reading was not about seeing every single letter.
Okay.
They argued that a good reader just samples a few letters and then makes it an accurate first guess based on context.
So I see a word I don't know, and instead of sounding it out, I should look at the picture. Or think about the grammar.
Yes. Look at the picture for meaning. Think about the grammar for structure. And then maybe, glance at the first letter for the visual cue.
And they actually thought that the letters themselves were the least reliable clue.
That was the core belief. As you get better at reading, you use fewer and fewer of the letters. Reading was framed as this efficient guessing game.
An efficient guessing game. Sounds plausible, I guess. But the science said the total opposite.
It did. The turning point was research from Keith Stanovich, starting around 1975. He just shattered the whole theory.
And what was the big discovery?
Stanovich found that it was the poorer readers who relied on context. They were guessing because their decoding skills were weak.
Wait, so the skilled readers weren't guessing at all?
Not at all. They recognize words instantly. They don't need the context.
That is it's wildly counterintuitive. The common sense idea that smart readers skim and guess is just wrong.
It's completely backward. A skilled reader has built what's called an orthographic map. They see the specific sequence of letters in house, and they instantly know it's house, not horse. There's no guessing involved.
But schools still kept these cueing strategies even when they started teaching phonics. They called it balanced literacy.
Right.
Why is that so bad? Doesn't the phonics balance it out?
No, because one completely negates the other. It creates total cognitive confusion.
How so?
It sends a message to the child that they can skip the hard work. They can skip sounding out the word because, hey, you have these other options. Just look at the picture. Guess what makes sense?
It's teaching them to take the shortcut.
Every single time. There's a perfect story about this from an educator named Margaret Goldberg. She talks about a first grader named Rodney.
Okay.
So Rodney is looking at a book. There's a picture of a dog licking a bone. The text actually says, "My little dog likes to eat with me."
And what did Rodney read?
He read, "My dog likes to lick his bone."
He wasn't even reading the words. He was just narrating the picture.
Exactly. He was doing what he was taught to do, prioritize meaning and context over the actual letters on the page. And the result is a disaster later on.
When the pictures go away.
Right around 3rd grade. Suddenly the books have no pictures, the words are longer, and these kids, they have no decoding skills to fall back on. Their whole foundation just crumbles.
Okay, so we've established that the shortcut of guessing is a total failure for kids. A systematic approach, decoding, that's what wins. So let's pivot. How does this apply to us, to our own lives as adults?
Well, what's the adult version of guessing instead of decoding?
I'd say reactive work.
Exactly. It's just working off whatever is at the top of your inbox. It's trusting your memory instead of a system. It's constant context switching.
So we need systematic training for our productivity, just like kids need it for reading.
We do. And it has to be low friction. I think a great example is Cal Newport's early time management system. He designed it for students about 20 years ago.
The 5-minute time management system.
Yeah, the beauty was its simplicity. It was all about full capture.
And 5 minutes a day. That's the kind of low-friction system an adult who says they're too busy can actually stick with. What were the tools?
Just two things: a permanent calendar for all your deadlines and to-dos, and a simple daily list, like just a single sheet of paper you carry around to jot down new tasks.
Okay, so walk me through the 5-minute flow.
It's really three simple steps. First, throughout the day, you just jot any new task on your list. The goal is full capture, get it out of your head.
Okay.
Second, the next morning, you take that list and you transfer everything, new stuff and unfinished stuff, onto your calendar. You just assign it to a future day.
And the third step is what makes it intentional, not just a to-do list.
That's it. You take a couple of minutes and you plan your day.
Yeah.
You actually time block, roughly. You decide when you're going to do each thing.
So you're being intentional about your time, not just reacting to a list.
And that's the part that really holds up today. Full capture and low friction. It's a system.
But that was designed for students. For a modern knowledge worker dealing with hundreds of inputs from email, Slack, what's missing?
It's scale
Yeah.
and transition. It doesn't really scale for that volume. But more importantly, it's missing what we now call a shutdown ritual.
Why is that ritual so critical for a systematic approach?
Because you need a systematic way to close the cognitive loop at the end of the day. A reader decodes a word and then moves on. A worker needs to do the same with their day.
So what does that look like?
It's a fixed 10 or 15-minute routine.
Yeah.
You process any last-minute tasks, you clear your space, and then, this is key, you say out loud, my plan for tomorrow is complete, I am now shutting down.
And that stops the cognitive residue, right? It tells your brain the workday is actually over.
It's like closing the mental tabs. It's systematic closure. So let's bring this all the way back to reading, but for us, reading for retention.
Right. The adult shortcut is passive reading. You read 100 pages and remember nothing.
So how do we make it active and systematic?
We can use habit stacking. If you already journal, you can build a reading habit right onto that. The technique itself is incredibly simple.
Read with a pen.
Read with a pen.
You have to write notes, but, and this is important in your own words, summaries, ideas, definitions. And doing it by hand actually forces deeper encoding in your brain. It's proven to boost retention over typing.
So you're decoding the text into your own language. It's not passive anymore, but those are just fleeting notes, right? Tied to that one book.
Yes. So the next systematic step is creating a permanent note.
This is the long-term knowledge hardware.
That's it. You transfer those handwritten notes into a digital app, Obsidian, Notion, whatever you use. But here's the key. You have to structure the note so it makes sense to future you.
Future you who has zero context from the original book.
Exactly. You re-explain the idea in universal terms. You link it to other ideas already in your system. You're not just filing a summary away. You are building a systematic personal web of knowledge.
So this deep dive is really just, it's laid bare, the systematic versus the seductive. For a young learner, that intentional, systematic training, phonics, decoding, it's just so much better than the shortcut of guessing.
And for us, for the adult learner, adopting those same systematic principles, full capture, intentional planning, that's how you manage complexity. That's how you make sure the deep work actually gets done.
The core insight here really is that our brains are wired to find the easiest path. The conflict is always between that tempting shortcut guessing, reacting, and the hard but necessary work.
Decoding, time blocking. It's a choice between what feels easy now and what builds mastery for the long term.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener.
If the brain can develop such a strong habit for guessing in early reading, what non-essential shortcuts are you taking in your own life? Maybe avoiding focus training or constantly dopamine stacking while you're trying to work. What's preventing you from engaging in the systematic deep work that's required for real mastery? That's something worth thinking about until our next dive.